January 22nd, 1599. The sun over the high desert of what would one day be called New Mexico is a merciless white disk in an impossibly blue sky. It beats down on steel and leather, on the sweating faces of men who were not born to this land. You are here, marching with them. You can feel the grit of the sand between your teeth, the chafing of the boiled leather brigandine against your wool gambeson, the relentless, oppressive weight of the Mauryan helmet pressing on your skull. This is the punitive expedition, under the command of Captain Gaspar Párez de Villagrá, a subordinate of the infamous governor Juan de Oñate. But for the men in the column, the grunts, the rodolero swordsmen, and the harquebusiers, he is simply the captain. And they are simply tired. For days they have marched. Their column is a sluggish, metallic serpent, slithering through a landscape of ochre, rust, and pale green sage. The air is so thin it feels like breathing dust. Every inhalation is a reminder of how far they are from the damp green fields of Castile, from the familiar world of stone churches and crowded marketplaces. Here, the only architecture is the monumental work of God and time. Mesas that rise like Titan-built fortresses, canyons that slash the earth, and a sky so vast it seems to mock the smallness of their endeavor. The sound of the march is a monotonous symphony of suffering. The clink of steel scabbards against armored cuisses, the rhythmic tramp of worn leather boots on packed earth, the low groans of the supply cart's wooden axles, and the occasional sharp curse in Spanish as a man stumbles on a loose rock. Sergeant Alonso Varela, a man whose face is a road map of old campaigns in Flanders and Italy, squints at the horizon. His beard is matted with dust, his eyes raw from the glare. Beside him walks a young soldier, barely 18, named Mateo. The boy's face is still soft, unhardened by the sun and cynicism that defines the veterans. He carries a heavy harquebus, its wooden stock dark with sweat and oil. The steel barrel is already hot to the touch, though the day is still young. "See that, Sergeant?" Mateo asks, his voice cracking with dryness. He gestures with his chin toward a rock formation in the distance. It doesn't look like the others. It is more deliberate, more singular. It rises from the desert floor like a great stone ship, sheer on all sides, a fortress of nature itself. Varela grunts, not taking his eyes off it. That is Acoma, the city in the sky, home of the devils who killed Zaldivar. The name hangs in the air, heavy and bitter. Juan de Zaldivar, Oñate's nephew, and a dozen of his men, ambushed and killed weeks ago while trying to requisition supplies from this very Pueblo. Their mission now is not one of exploration or conversion. It is one of vengeance, pure, simple, and brutal. Oñate's orders were clear. Make an example of Acoma that would echo through every pueblo in this new defiant kingdom. A ripple of murmurs passes through the column as more men spot their destination, Acoma Pueblo. It seems impossible. A city perched atop a 370-foot sandstone mesa. From this distance, they cannot see the structures, only the monolithic rock. It appears impregnable, a natural citadel that laughs at conventional siegecraft of Europe. There are no walls to breach with cannons, no gates to splinter with battering rams. There is only the rock. Captain Villagrá rides his tired Andalusian stallion to a halt at the head of the column. He is a man of letters as well as a soldier, a poet who writes epics about his own conquests. He sees not just a military objective, but a scene of Homeric grandeur. He sees himself as a new Odysseus, a Cortez facing a challenge worthy of legend. He raises a gauntleted hand, and the column clanks to a weary stop. The sudden silence is profound, broken only by the wind whistling through sparse pinon and juniper. "There it is, men," Villagras announces, his voice carrying in the clear air. "The nest of traitors and murderers. By the grace of God and the steel of Castile, we will pull it down, stone by stone. We will teach these heathens the price of spilling Spanish blood." A ragged cheer goes up, but it is thin, swallowed by the immense space around them. The men are exhausted, their water-skins are low, and the rock in front of them seems to grow larger, more intimidating with every passing moment. They look at its sheer, sun-baked cliffs and then at their own equipment: pikes, swords, clumsy matchlock firearms. How were they to ascend such a thing? As they make camp in the shadow of the mesa, the mood is tense. They can feel eyes on them from above. Though they cannot see the people of Acoma, the presence of the Pueblo is a palpable weight. Soldiers nervously check the matches for their arquebuses, sharpen their blades on whetstones, and whisper prayers to the Virgin. There are 70 men, armed with the finest weapons the Spanish Empire can provide. They are the inheritors of a military tradition that conquered the Mexica and the Inca. Yet looking up at that silent, sun-scorched fortress of stone, they feel an unfamiliar prickle of doubt. Mateo, the young soldier, watches Sergeant Varela clean his sword, the movements economical and practiced. He pauses, wiping the blade with an oily rag. He glances up at the cliff face, his gaze tracing the vertical lines. "There are paths," he says, his voice a low rumble. "Handholds cut into the rock, and ladders. They use ladders. Crude things, pine logs with sticks tied to them." He gives a short, barking laugh. "They climb up and down like squirrels. We will climb up after them." Another soldier, a grizzled pikeman named Sancho, overhears them and scoffs. "Ladders? Their defense is ladders?" He laughs a harsh, grating sound. The laughter is contagious. Soon a small group of soldiers is chuckling at the absurdity of it. The mighty Spanish army come to lay siege to a fortress defended by wooden ladders. The image is comical. It eases the tension, replaces the gnawing fear with a familiar, comfortable arrogance. They are conquistadors. They have faced armies of thousands. They have toppled empires. They will not be stopped by a few ladders propped against a rock. The laughter echoes for a moment against the stone, a sound of profound and terrible confidence. From the top of the mesa, the sound drifts up, thin and strange, to the ears of the watchers. They do not understand the words, but they understand the tone. It is the sound of mockery, the sound of men who have no idea what they are about to face. And in the silence that follows, the people of Acoma continue their preparations, their movements deliberate and calm, guided by a wisdom born of this very rock, a wisdom that the men below could not possibly comprehend. The sun begins to set, painting the cliffs in hues of blood and fire. The first day of the siege is ending, and the battle for Acoma has not yet truly begun.
From atop the mesa, the world is a different place. Here, you are not crawling upon the earth. You are a part of the sky. The wind is a constant companion, a voice that speaks in whispers and roars, carrying the scent of rain from mountains 100 miles away, the fragrance of cliff rose and sage from the slopes below. This is Haku, the Acoma homeland, a place that is eternal, a settlement that has clung to this rock for nearly 1,000 years. The people here do not see their home as a fortress. They see it as a refuge, a sacred place held close to the sun and the spirits of the sky. The stone under your feet is not just rock. It is the bone of the mother. An elder named Chaitan stands near the mesa's edge. His wrinkled face is carved and weathered as the sandstone itself. His eyes, though clouded with age, are sharp. He watches the Spanish camp below, a dark stain on the clean palette of the desert. The tiny figures of the soldiers, the glint of their metal carapaces, the orderly lines of their tents, it all seems so alien, so aggressively temporary against the permanence of the landscape. He has seen the Castilians before. He remembers the party led by the one they called Zaldivar, the arrogance in their eyes, the demands for food and blankets as if they were owed the very sustenance of the Acoma people. He remembers the tension, the whispers among the warriors, the final explosive violence that had left the Spaniards dead and his own people marked for a terrible retribution. He knew this day would come. It was as certain as the rising of the sun. Beside him stands a younger man, Kapua, the war captain of Acoma. Katua is tall for his people, with broad shoulders and a quiet intensity. His eyes are fixed on the soldiers below, analyzing their movements, their numbers, their weapons. He saw the flash of their laughter earlier, heard the faint, arrogant sound drift up the cliff face. He did not need to understand their words to know its meaning. They saw the ladders. They saw the handholds carved into the rock face, and they laughed. Katua felt a cold stillness settle over him. Their laughter was a gift. It was the poison of pride, a blindness that would serve the Acoma well. They think the path is the weakness, Katua says, his voice low, more a statement of fact than a question. Chaitan nods slowly, his gaze unwavering. They see a ladder as a way up. They do not see it as a gate that can be closed. Their world is one of heavy stone walls and iron hinges. They think in terms of breaking things. We think in terms of removing the path. He places a hand on Katua's shoulder. Their strength is in their steel and their fire spitters. Our strength is here. He taps his own temple, then gestures to the rock beneath their feet. This rock is our ally. The sky is our shield. Throughout the Pueblo there is not panic, but a grim, focused energy. The village is a collection of multi-story adobe buildings, their earthen walls glowing warmly in the late afternoon sun. The plazas, normally alive with the sounds of children playing and women grinding corn, are now scenes of quiet preparation. Women are filling large pottery jars with water, not just for drinking, but to be heated and poured on any attackers who might reach the top. Men are checking their bows, straightening arrow shafts fletched with hawk feathers, and chipping new edges onto stone axe heads. Young boys, too young to fight, are tasked with piling rocks, heavy, hand-sized projectiles, near the main access points along the mesa's edge. Every person has a role. There is no standing army here, only a community preparing to defend its existence. The primary means of accessing Acoma is a series of hand and toe trails carved into the sandstone, connected by long, sturdy ladders made from ponderosa pine or juniper logs. The rungs are smaller branches, lashed to the main poles with wet rawhide, which shrinks and tightens as it dries, creating a bond stronger than any nail. These ladders are not fixtures, they are tools. For generations, the last ladder of the main trail was pulled up to the top of the mesa every night, sealing the village off from the world below, protecting it from raiders, whether they be Apache, Navajo, or the four-legged predators of the desert. It is a simple, ingrained habit, a piece of daily life as natural as greeting the morning sun. The idea that this simple act could be a revolutionary military tactic is something only an outsider, an invader, would fail to grasp. Katua walks the perimeter of the mesa, his moccasins silent on the stone. He stops at the top of the main ladder trail, the one the Spanish would almost certainly try to ascend. Two of his best warriors, a pair of brothers named Honan and Talas, are stationed there. They are not standing guard in the European sense, not pacing back and forth. They are sitting calmly, conserving their energy, their bows lying across their laps. Beside them is a thick rope of woven yucca fiber, looped around the top of the uppermost ladder, which descends about 40 feet to the next ledge. The ladder itself is a heavy, cumbersome thing, requiring the strength of several men to maneuver. "They will come at dawn," Katua says to the brothers. Honan, the elder, simply nods. "We will be ready," Talas says, his hand resting on the yucca rope. Katua looks down the sheer drop. He can see the path twisting below, a precarious route that would be difficult for an unburdened Acoma to climb, let alone a man clad in steel, carrying a weapon. He imagines the Spaniards, their heavy boots slipping on the worn stone, their metal armor clanging with every move, announcing their presence. He imagines their frustration, their sweat, their curses echoing in the narrow chute. The arrogance they heard in their laughter would be cooked out of them by the sun and the climb long before they reached this final ladder. "Do not show yourselves too soon," Katua instructs. "Let them tire themselves on the rock. Let their confidence turn to sweat. Let them believe the prize is within their grasp. Only then, when their leaders' feet are on the lower rungs, do you act. Act as one. No hesitation." Honan looks at his war captain. "We know the movements, Katua. We have practiced this since we were boys, pulling the ladder from our younger cousins in play. This is no different." Katua knows he is right. This is not a new strategy devised for the Spanish. This is an ancient practice, a piece of their architecture, as fundamental as the adobe bricks of their homes. It is a defense born of common sense. As dusk settles, the fires in the Spanish camp below twinkle like fallen stars. The Acoma people gather in their homes. There is no fear in the air, but a profound solemnity. They are about to fight for everything they have ever known. Chaitan, the elder, gathers the children and tells them the old stories, stories of the creation, of how their ancestors were led to this very rock, their permanent home. He tells them that the rock and the people are one. To lose the rock is to lose themselves. The children listen, their dark eyes wide in the flickering light of the small hearth fires. They are not just stories. They are instructions on how to live, and if necessary, how to die. They are the source of the quiet strength that now permeates the Sky City. Katua sits with his own family, his wife and young daughter. He eats the corn stew she offers him, though he has little appetite. He watches his daughter sleeping and feels the weight of what is to come. This is not a battle for glory or gold, the things that seem to drive the metal men below. It is a battle for this moment, the right to sit in his own home with his own family, on the rock his people have always known. Later, under a brilliant canopy of stars, undimmed by any competing light, Katua returns to the edge of the mesa. The desert below is a vast, dark sea. The Spanish camp is quiet. He knows they are sleeping, dreaming of conquest. He looks up at the stars, then down at the silent, sleeping land. He is not just a warrior defending a fortress. He is a man defending his universe. And the key to that defense is not a weapon of war, but a simple household tool, a ladder, and the wisdom to know when to pull it away. The cold night air settles in, and Acoma waits for the dawn. Dawn breaks, not as a gentle awakening, but as a sharp, brutal cut of light across the eastern horizon. The desert floor transitions from a deep, cold purple to a harsh, flat tan in a matter of minutes. For the Spanish soldiers, the morning is a misery of cold rations, lukewarm water, and the stiff, unforgiving embrace of their armor. Sleep had been fitful, interrupted by the unfamiliar night sounds of the desert and the looming, silent presence of the mesa. Now, as they form up, the cold morning air raises clouds of steam from their breath, a visible sign of the life that would soon be risked. Captain Villagra, already mounted, looks every bit the part of the conquistador in his polished breastplate and plumed helmet. He feels the pull of history, the eyes of his king and his god upon him. This would be a day of righteous fury. Sergente Varela! Villagra's voice is sharp, cutting through the low murmur of the assembled troops. You will take a forward party of 12, arquebusiers and rodoleros. You will secure the base of the main ascent and provide covering fire. The main assault party will follow. We will climb this rock and burn them out of their holes like rats. Si, Capitan, Varela growls, his face grim. He turns and barks the names of the men he wants. Young Mateo, clutching his heavy matchlock, is among them. The boy's knuckles are white, his face pale beneath its layer of grime. He fumbles with the slow-burning match cord, trying to keep the lit end away from his powder flask, his hands clumsy with a mixture of cold and fear. Varela claps him hard on the shoulder. Keep your wits about you, boy. Stay behind Sancho and the other shield men. Just do your job. Aim for any head that shows itself over the edge. Don't think, just load and fire. The advance party moves out, a small, heavily armed group detaching itself from the main body of 70 men. Their footsteps are loud in the morning stillness as they cross the open ground towards the base of the mesa. From the top, Katua and his warriors watch them come. They are a small, dark cluster moving with deadly purpose. The Acoma remain perfectly still, hidden behind the low parapets of the outermost buildings and natural rock formations along the cliff edge. They have become part of the stone. Varela's party reaches the beginning of the trail. It is less a trail and more a chaotic jumble of fallen rock and steep sandy scree leading to the first set of handholds carved directly into the sandstone cliff face. It is a narrow, claustrophobic channel offering no room for maneuver. Sancho, a burly swordsman carrying a round steel shield, or rodella, takes the lead. He looks up. The path is a dizzying vertical puzzle. Devils and saints, Sancho mutters, craning his neck. This is work for goats, not men. Get moving, Varela orders from behind him. The captain is watching. The climb begins. It is immediately apparent how ill-suited their equipment is for this task. The steel-soled boots that provided good purchase on a European battlefield slip and skate on the smooth sandstone. The weight of their armor pulls them backwards, straining their arms and backs. Every movement is an effort. A harquebus, a formidable weapon on an open field, becomes a long, clumsy anchor, snagging on rock outcroppings. Mateo feels his lungs burning in the thin air, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. The mesa seems to press in on him, the rock face just inches from his nose, smelling of dust and ancient dry heat. After 20 minutes of grueling, exhausting work, they reach the first true obstacle, a wooden ladder, about 20 feet long, leaning against a sheer vertical section to connect two ledges. It is exactly as Varela had described. 2 thick pine poles with smaller branches lashed between them. It looks crude, almost comically primitive compared to the finely engineered siege ladders of Europe. Sancho, breathing heavily, pounds a gounted fist against one of the poles. It feels solid enough. He looks up at the empty sky above the lip of the next ledge. See? Nothing, he calls down to the men below. They are hiding, too cowardly to face us. He lets out a short, breathless laugh. This all for a chicken ladder. The joke, a poor one born of exertion and relief, travels down the line. A few of the men chuckle. The object of their fear, the great defense of Acoma, is this simple, rustic construction. Their confidence, which had been eroding with every scraped knuckle and burning muscle, begins to return. They were fools to have been intimidated. These are savages who fight with sticks and stones. Their worldview is a simple, unshakable pyramid with their god, their king, and their steel at the very top. Everything else is beneath them, fit only for conquest or scorn. The Acoma ladders, in their rustic simplicity, become a focal point for this contempt. They are a symbol of everything the Spanish believe about the native peoples, that they are unsophisticated, artless, and fundamentally, comically inferior. From above, Quitua watches and listens. He sees the first group of soldiers, Varela's men, reach the ledge just below the final, longest ladder. They are panting, their movements sluggish with fatigue. He can see the sweat shining on their faces even from this height. He hears the faint echoes of their laughter, the brittle sound of overconfidence. Honan and Talas are in position, hidden behind a rockfall near the ladder's top, the thick yucca rope coiled and ready in their hands. Quitua gives a slow, almost imperceptible nod. The trap is set. The prey is climbing willingly into it, laughing all the way. He looks over at Chaitan, who has come to stand beside him. The old man's face is a mask of sorrowful resolve. "Pride is a thirsty god," Chaitan says, his voice a dry whisper. "Today it will drink its fill of Spanish blood." Below, Sergeant Varela gestures for Sancho to lead the way up the final ladder. The burly swordsman holsters his blade and begins to climb, his shield strapped to his back. He places his heavy boot on the first rung, then the second. He looks up. The top is so close he can almost taste the victory. He imagines the look on the captain's face, the glory of being the first man to set foot in the rebel city. Behind him, Mateo prepares to follow, his harquebus now slung awkwardly over his shoulder. The laughter has died down, replaced by the heavy breathing of the climb. The moment is here, the final ascent, and still there is only the vast, profound silence of the sky. Sancho, the swordsman, feels the rough texture of the pine pole under his gauntleted hands. Each rung is a victory, a step closer to the top, a foot gained against this damnable rock. The ladder is steeper than the last, and it sways slightly with his weight, the movement a nauseating lurch for a man not accustomed to heights. He focuses on the rhythm, hand over hand, foot over foot. Don't look down. Don't think about the drop. The air is thin and cool up here, a welcome relief from the reflected heat of the lower rock face. Below him he can hear the grunts and clinks of his comrades as they begin to follow, their collective weight adding to the ladder's groaning protest. Sergeant Varela is just a few rungs beneath him, urging him on. "Move, Sancho! By God, move!" The lip of the mesa is now only 10 feet away, 8 feet. 6. Sancho can see the texture of the sandstone at the edge, the way it has been worn smooth by generations of hands and feet. He can see the brilliant, empty blue of the sky beyond it. The silence is absolute. It is the silence of an abandoned place, a ghost town. They fled, he thinks with a surge of triumphant certainty. The cowards have fled. He imagines planting the banner of Castile in the central plaza, the glory of claiming this sky fortress without a single arrow being fired. He reaches a hand up, stretching for the top, for the solid purchase of the mesa itself. His fingers are just inches away from the edge. He is so close. And then, it happens. It is not a sudden, violent event. It is a smooth, quiet, and utterly bewildering motion. The ladder, the very structure he is clinging to, begins to move. Not down, but up and away. For a fraction of a second, his mind refuses to process what is happening. It is a violation of the laws of physics as he understands them. Ladders do not simply lift off the ground, but this one does. It slides upwards along the rock face with a soft, scraping sound. The rung his hand was just reaching for is now a foot above his head.
The rung his other hand is grasping is pulling him upwards with it. From the top, the movement is one of beautiful, coordinated simplicity. At Ketua's signal, Honan, Talas, and 4 other powerful men had taken hold of the yucca ropes. They did not yank or pull frantically. They leaned back, their bare feet braced against the solid rock of their home, and used their combined weight and strength in a single, fluid motion. The base of the heavy ladder lifts from the ledge below, swinging free into the air, and the entire structure begins its ascent, scraping against the sandstone cliff. They are not merely pulling up a ladder, they are retracting the tongue of a bridge, closing the only gate. It is an act of architecture, not of war. Sancho's cry is one of pure shock, not fear. Ostia! The ladder is rising, carrying him with it like a fly on a rising stick. Below him, Sergeant Varela stares upward in disbelief. The base of the ladder, which had been resting firmly on the ledge a moment before, is now 5 feet in the air. The soldiers who had been waiting to climb now stand flat-footed, pointing and shouting, their words a confused babble. "What devilry is this? They're pulling it up! Sancho! Varela! Jump!" But there is nowhere to jump. To their left and right are sheer, vertical rock faces. Below is a 100-foot drop onto the jagged screed they had so painfully climbed. Sancho clings to the ladder, his knuckles white inside his gauntlets. He is ascending, against his will, into the heart of the enemy stronghold. He draws his sword, a futile, absurd gesture. What is he to do? Fight the ladder itself? He looks down and sees the widening gap of empty air between his feet and the ledge where his comrades stand. He sees the upturned, helmeted faces, their expressions a mixture of horror and utter incomprehensibility. He sees young Mateo, his mouth agape, his eyes wide with terror. Sergeant Varela is the first to react with a soldier's instinct. He understands, in a flash of terrible clarity, the simple, devastating genius of the trap. The laughter of the previous hour curdles in his gut, turning to a bitter acid of shame. They had mocked the ladders, and now the ladders were unmaking them. "Off the ladder!" he roars at the man below him. "Get off!" He tries to scramble down, but the upward motion of the ladder makes it almost impossible. His boots slip on the rungs. He is clinging precariously, halfway between the rising ladder and the now distant ledge. Then the arrows come. Not a massive volley, but a handful of precise, deadly shots from unseen archers at the top of the mesa. They are not aiming for the men on the ledge, not yet. They are aiming for the men on the ladder. An arrow strikes Sancho high in the chest, punching through the thinner steel of his gorget with a sickening crunch. His sword clatters from his hand, spinning end over end as it falls, its metallic ring against the rock, a tiny, lonely sound in the sudden chaos. Sancho's grip loosens. For a moment he hangs there, a look of profound surprise on his face. Then he peels away from the ladder and falls backwards into the void, his body tumbling, a marionette with its strings cut. He does not scream. Another arrow hits the soldier below Varela, who lets out a choked cry and slides from the ladder, striking the ledge with a brutal, bone-breaking impact. Varela is alone on the ladder now, clinging desperately as it continues its inexorable rise. He looks up and sees them for the first time. The faces, brown, impassive, watching him from the edge of the mesa as they haul him up like a fish on a line. He sees the war captain, Ketua, standing among them, his expression not of triumph, but of grim necessity. There is no hatred in those eyes, only a cold, hard resolve. He realizes he is not being captured. He is being disposed of. He makes a choice. With a final defiant curse aimed at the silent sky, he lets go. His fall is shorter than Sancho's. He hits the ledge with a sickening thud, his armor-clad body crumpling at an unnatural angle. The silence that follows is broken only by the whimpering of the man with the arrow in his back and the distant, horrified shouts from Captain Villagras' men far below. The great ladder completes its journey, its base clearing the edge of the cliff. With a final heave, the Acoma warriors pull it onto the flat top of the mesa and lay it on the ground. The path is gone. The gate is closed. On the ledge, young Mateo stands frozen, staring at the empty space where the ladder had been. He looks at the broken body of his sergeant, the groaning, dying soldier beside him. He looks at the sheer, impassive rock face in front of him. There is no way up, and there is no easy way down. He and the other 10 survivors of the advance party are trapped on a narrow shelf of rock, 100 feet in the air, with an army of enraged Acoma warriors above them and the unforgiving laws of gravity below. The laughter is a distant mocking memory. The simple, primitive ladder has become the most sophisticated weapon he has ever seen. It has defeated them without a single sword being crossed, without a single shot from his arquebus being fired. It has defeated them with nothing more than a rope and an understanding of the rock that the Spaniards could never possess. The assault is over. The lesson has begun.
The world for Mateo and the other 9 soldiers on the ledge has shrunk to a sliver of sandstone, 20 feet long and perhaps 6 feet wide. Below them is a dizzying expanse of nothing, ending in the jagged rocks where their comrades in the main assault party now stare upwards, their upturned faces like pale, helpless flowers. Above them is the lip of the mesa, a sharp, impassive line against the blue sky. It is as unreachable as the moon. The sun, climbing higher, begins to beat down on them, turning their steel helmets and breastplates into personal ovens. There is nowhere to hide from its glare, no shade to be found. They are exposed, isolated, and utterly, terrifyingly trapped. Panic, a cold and greasy thing, begins to set in. One soldier, a man named Hernan, inches his way to the edge of the ledge and peers down. The height makes the world swim before his eyes. "We have to go down," he cries, his voice shrill with fear. "We have to climb down." But there is no climbing down. The way they had come up was a series of precarious handholds and footholds that required the full use of both hands. To descend would mean to do so backwards and blind, feeling for purchase that might not be there, all while wearing 60 pounds of steel and carrying weapons. It is a suicidal proposition. A few of the other men begin to shout up at the blank cliff face, their voices a mixture of rage and pleading. "You cowards!" a pikeman screams, shaking his fist at the sky. "Face us like men!" "Mercy!" another begs, his voice cracking. "For the love of God, give us a way down!" There is no answer. No faces appear over the edge. No arrows fall. The silence from the Acoma is now a weapon in itself, a form of psychological torture that is more effective than any war cry. It amplifies the soldiers' sense of isolation. It tells them that they are no longer considered a threat. They are merely a problem to be dealt with, or perhaps to be ignored until the sun and thirst do the work for them. Mateo presses his back against the warm sandstone, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He looks at the body of Sergeant Varela, the man who had seemed so indestructible just an hour ago, now a broken heap of steel and flesh. The sergeant's lessons about tactics, about courage, about the superiority of Spanish arms all seem like hollow, meaningless words now. What good is a sword against a sheer cliff? What good is a harquebus when your enemy is the rock beneath your feet and the sky above your head? Down below, Captain Villagras is in a state of apoplectic fury. He has watched the entire debacle unfold through his spyglass. The bewildering ascent of the ladder, the fall of his men, the sudden, shocking severing of his assault. His plan, his glorious charge up the rock, has been dismantled by a piece of wood and a rope. It is insulting. It is infuriating. It is, to a man of his immense pride, unbearable. "Fire!" he roars at his harquebusiers. "Fire on the top! A volley! Rake the edge!" The harquebusiers hurried to obey. They prop their heavy weapons on forked rests, aim the long barrels upwards, and touch their smoldering match cords to the flashpans. A ragged volley of shots crack through the air, the reports echoing strangely against the vast rock face. Puffs of white smoke billow around the men. But it is a futile gesture. The range is too great, the angle too extreme. The heavy lead balls either smack harmlessly against the stone cliff face hundreds of feet up, or they arc uselessly into the sky and fall somewhere back in the Pueblo, far from the edge. The Acoma are too well protected by the rock itself. From the top, Katua's warriors hear the distant pops and the whistle of the balls passing harmlessly overhead. They do not even flinch. Villagras sees the futility of it. His face is purple with rage. He turns his fury on the men around him. Are we to be defeated by savages with a ladder? Are we, the soldiers of Spain, to be mocked by these naked heathens? Find another way. Search the perimeter. There must be another path. Small patrols are dispatched in either direction, scrambling along the base of the mesa, desperately searching for another crack, another fissure, another set of handholds that might offer a way up. But the people of Acoma chose their home well. The cliffs are sheer, monolithic, offering no purchase. The Spaniards are ants trying to scale a marble wall. After an hour of fruitless searching, the patrols return, their reports confirming what Villagras already fears. The path they had chosen was the only one. The helplessness of their situation settles over the entire Spanish force. Their military machine, a thing of terrible efficiency on the plains of Europe, is useless here. Their pikes are too long and unwieldy. Their swords require an enemy you can reach. Their armor, designed to stop blades and arrows on a level field, becomes a deadly encumbrance, a lead weight threatening to pull them from the cliffs. Their horses, a key to their mobility and power, are useless spectators. The Spanish are a force designed for horizontal warfare, and they have come to a vertical world. They are stranded at the bottom of the sky, shouting impotently at an enemy they cannot see and cannot reach. On the ledge, the sun reaches its zenith. The heat is now an active torment. The men's water skins are nearly empty. Thirst begins its insidious work, drying their mouths, cracking their lips, clouding their judgment. The wounded soldier, his moans growing weaker, has lapsed into a fevered delirium. Mateo, his own thirst a burning coal in his throat, crawls over to the man and offers him the last few drops from his canteen. The act of compassion is a small island of humanity in a sea of despair. Then, a new horror. From the top of the mesa, figures finally appear. But they are not warriors with bows. They are women, Acoma women, their faces grim, carrying large, steaming ceramic pots. They move to the edge of the cliff, directly above the trapped soldiers. For a moment, the men on the ledge stare up confused. Then the women tilt the pots. A cascade of boiling water, mixed with hot ash and sand, rains down upon them. Screams of agony erupt from the ledge. The superheated liquid finds its way into the gaps in their armor, searing their skin. Men clot their helmets to escape the scalding steam, their movements clumsy with panic. One soldier, his clothes and skin blistering, stumbles blindly and walks straight off the edge of the ledge, his scream cut mercifully short. Mateo scrambles against the cliff face, pressing himself into the rock, trying to make himself as small as possible.
A splash of the burning water catches his arm, and he cries out, the pain a white-hot fire. The attack is brief, brutally effective, and deeply humiliating. They are being dispatched not by warriors, but by the enemy's women using the tools of their kitchens. When it is over, the survivors are broken. Their shouts of defiance have turned to whimpers of pain. The ledge is a scene from hell, littered with the dead and the dying. Down below, Captain Villagras watches, his face a mask of stone. He has seen enough. The arrogance, the laughter, the certainty of victory. It has all been boiled away under the desert sun, washed away by a simple, brilliant defense. He has been outthought, outmaneuvered, and utterly defeated by a people he considered to be little more than animals. The might of Spain, the steel and the gunpowder, has been rendered helpless. He has lost his men, his honor, and the day.
The afternoon sun casts long, funereal shadows across the desert floor. The heat, which had been a relentless hammer, begins to soften into a more bearable warmth. For the Spanish, the day has bled away in a slow, agonizing defeat. The shouts have died. The futile harquebus shots have ceased. A heavy, exhausted silence has fallen over the camp at the base of the mesa, a silence thick with the bitter taste of humiliation. Captain Villagras stands apart from his men, his back to them, staring up at the monolithic rock that has so thoroughly broken his army. He sees no movement, hears no sound from the top. The Acoma have simply withdrawn, their point made with devastating clarity. On the ledge, only 4 soldiers are left alive. Mateo is one of them. His arm is a mess of angry red burns, the pain a constant throbbing reminder of their folly. The others are in similar or worse states, moaning quietly, their spirits as broken as their bodies. The sun has baked the moisture from them, and their thirst is a form of madness. They have watched their comrades die, from arrows, from the fall, from the scalding water. And now they simply wait for their own end. They are no longer soldiers. They are just thirsty, terrified men, marooned between the earth and the sky. As dusk approaches, something changes. A rope, thick and sturdy, is lowered from the top of the mesa. It snakes down the rock face and comes to rest on their ledge. There is no note, no voice, just the silent offering of the rope. The surviving soldiers stare at it, their minds slow to comprehend. Is it another trap? A trick? One of the men, a desperate soldier named Francisco, lurches towards it. "Away down," he croaks, his voice raw. "They're letting us go." He grabs the rope, his hand shaking. He is weak, but the prospect of escape gives him a final surge of strength. He wraps it around his body and without a second thought pushes off from the ledge, beginning a clumsy sliding descent. His comrades watch, holding their breath. From above, the rope is held firm. There is no trick. He reaches the scree pile at the bottom, collapsing in a heap, but alive. One by one, the other 3 follow, Mateo last among them. As he lowers himself, his burned arm screaming in protest, he looks up one last time. He sees a single figure watching him from the edge of the mesa. It is the war captain, Catua. Their eyes meet for a brief second across the vast gulf of air and culture. Mateo sees no triumph in the man's gaze, only a deep, weary stillness. It is the look of a man who has done what was necessary to protect his home. Then Mateo is on the ground, his ordeal over. Why did the Acoma let them go? Was it mercy? Or was it a message more powerful than any massacre? A message that said, "We can kill you, but today we choose not to. We can defeat your weapons and your arrogance. We hold the power of life and death here. Remember that." By returning the survivors, they ensured the story of this day's events would be told, a tale of Spanish impotence and Pueblo ingenuity that would spread to other villages, a seed of hope and resistance. They had not just won a battle, They had authored a legend. Captain Villagras does not greet the survivors. He watches them stumble back to the main camp, helped by their comrades, and he turns away, his shame a physical weight. There will be no glory in his epic poem today. He gives the order, his voice flat and devoid of emotion. Strike the camp. We are leaving. The retreat is a grim, silent affair. The Spanish soldiers move with the shuffling gait of a beaten army. They load their dead and wounded onto the carts, their movements sluggish. They do not look back at the mesa. To look at it is to be reminded of their failure, of the laughter that now seemed like the braying of fools. They had come for vengeance, expecting an easy victory over primitive savages. They leave with fewer men, their pride shattered, having been defeated by a profound and simple intelligence they could not comprehend. The column, that metallic serpent that had arrived with such confidence, now slinks back into the desert, its fangs drawn, its venom spent. From the top of Acoma, the people watch them go. They watch until the last glint of Spanish steel disappears into the twilight. There is no cheering, no celebration. The victory is a somber one. They have defended their home, but they know the metal men will be back. This was not the end of the war, only the end of a single battle. They have lost warriors of their own, and the cost of survival is always high. Chaitan, the elder, stands with Katua, looking out over the darkening land. "You fought with wisdom today, not just strength," Katua replied. "The rock fought with us. We simply listened to its advice." He walks to the edge where the great ladder had been pulled up. It now lies nearby, a simple tool of wood and rawhide. It looks so ordinary. Yet on this day it had been more powerful than a cannon, more effective than a company of swordsmen. It was a symbol of their way of life, of using what the land provides, of understanding the verticality of their world, and of the simple, elegant solutions that are invisible to those blinded by arrogance. They had not needed to match the Spanish weapon for weapon. They had only needed to be who they were, in the place they belonged. The invaders had brought their tools of war. The Acoma had used their tools of life. The story you have just witnessed is a testament to that ingenuity. While the historical siege of Acoma in 1599 ultimately had a tragic and brutal end in a subsequent assault, this initial repulse stands as a powerful moment. It is a story that challenges the narrative of an inevitable, technologically superior conquest. It reminds us that strength is not always measured in steel and gunpowder. Sometimes it is measured in knowing your land. Sometimes it is found in the deep wisdom of a community. And sometimes the most powerful weapon in the world is the ability to see a simple ladder, not just as a way up, but as a gate you can pull closed behind you, leaving your enemy shouting, helpless, from the world below.